fellow creatures! Let's not waste any time. I rigged my first ever controller! This is an update to Jelly's model. If you aren't familiar, you can watch this video that I made on it and follow her to see it in action live. As I mentioned before, this is my first time ever rigging a controller, so I had to do some research. Basically, you can do controller tracking through a plugin, I think most commonly NyaruPad, I hope it's pronounced, and it's what I'm using too. It comes with an already rigged example model, and that is super useful, and I referenced it a lot while rigging. Luckily, I was also recently gifted a controller by my boyfriend, so that helped a lot with references. Like, photos and videos are nice, but getting to hold it in my hand just helped me a lot if I ever got stuck or unsure about something. Next was, in my opinion, the most important part, making the art. Like I said, I had a controller myself, so I took some pictures of me holding it, figuring out which angle Jelly would like the most for her model. Of course, I started out sketching the size and the position of the controller first, and then it was time to design it. I made 3 super quick design doodles. One with jellyfish, one with moon and stars, and one with just water texture. I showed them to Jelly and she said she liked the first one the most, so I took that idea and refined it further into a more detailed and hopefully harmonious design. It took me a couple tries to figure out what color to make the controller and the buttons too, so it stands out both against the dark colors of her outfit and her light pink skin. In the end, I think it works out, but it honestly wasn't the easiest thing in the world to figure out. Contrast is super important, and even more so for a lineless style like this. So I often checked it in black and white and made sure nothing was blending together too much. Now, let's talk a little about the cutting. In case you aren't familiar, cutting is the common term used to describe separating the layers of our model to make sure it can be animated in Live2D. The better the cutting, the better the rigging can be. Cutting is extremely important. And if you have a badly cut model, you can get refused for rigging commissions, because it's such a massive pain to work with, and it can make it straight up impossible to rig a model up to the rigger standards. Since I'm both a rigger and artist, I can separate things exactly as much or as little as I need for the rigging that I have in mind. For example, the bottom fingers are all in one piece, but her pointer finger is separated into the top and bottom portion of the finger. Her nail is in a separate layer, as well as the shadow the finger casts on the controller itself. It may sound like a lot, but it actually made my job a lot easier and faster later. So let's talk about that now. At this point, I put my PSD into Live2D and started working. First, I wanted to do the 2 big buttons, so R1 and R2. Here is where the good cutting came into play. The nail being separate may seem excessive, but I didn't have to worry about it warping awkwardly at any point, and it's very subtle here, but it being separate can help indicate the position and mainly rotation of the finger. I also moved the shadow in a little when the finger lifts for that extra little detail that I really like. I just think it makes it look right, in a way that's probably not super noticeable if I didn't point it out. A lot of rigging is like that. It's common with animation altogether, actually. If you don't notice something wrong, then there's usually a lot of effort being put into it looking right. It's a curse and a blessing, because it can often be pretty easy to tell when something looks off, but it can be pretty hard to figure out what exactly is making it look that way and how to fix it. Oh, also, another useful technique is using the mesh to your advantage. I just talked about how cutting is important, but this button is all in one piece. But it can still work very well if I make a custom mesh that follows the shape I've drawn instead of just auto mesh. Auto mesh is still useful and saves a ton of time in 90% of cases, don't get me wrong, but it's good to know when to use each option or technique available to you. In this case, it's very useful and much easier to push that button down the way that I want it with a custom mesh. Most of the controller rigging is actually handled with rotation deformers instead of regular ones. This actually helped me get more comfortable with them and using them more regularly. Same goes for glue, and if you are even a little bit of a rigger yourself, you are probably familiar with the fact that most riggers, especially early on, find glue confusing and too difficult to use. And if you aren't familiar, glue is a function in Live2D that, well, glues 2 meshes together. So if you move one mesh, the other follows automatically without you needing to do it manually. As I mentioned, it can be pretty difficult to grasp and use effectively, especially while you're still learning the program. I fall into that camp somewhat. I'm familiar enough with glue to use it to some degree, but I decided this would be the perfect opportunity to learn more about it and become even more familiar with it. I wish I recorded my process, because boy, there was some wrestling. But in the end, I think it works and definitely saved me time. It's especially visible for the stick movements, but it actually came in very handy for more subtle movements the most, like the X angle and button presses. I honestly cannot wait to rig my next model and use what I learned to make the process smoother and faster. One slightly tricky part of this is that I have made Jelly a waving animation, which she set up to play automatically when she gets a new follower. I really like making animations for events like that. I think it adds such a nice flair to the model and the stream. But it does mean I had to make the wave work with the controller too. I honestly expected this to be more tedious than it was. It was still tedious, but I wasn't ripping my hair out over it, thankfully. Next, everything is set up and tested in VTube Studio. Gotta double check every interaction and figure out if anything is broken or weird looking and fix it up if it is. And then, here it is all done. From now on, you can request I add controller tracking to any future commissions. I'm really happy I got to learn something new, and it's really fun to have that bit of immersion, and frankly, it's just fun to mess around and press the buttons. Now that we are at the end of this video, I wanted to mention something. I had the idea that it would be really fun to do a chibi model, but honestly, I've not really drawn much chibi art at all, and of course it would be my first time rigging a chibi model, so I would definitely want to go for something slightly more simplistic than a full model. So I got the idea that it would be fun to do one as a giveaway for when I reach 1,000 subs. Hi, editing rat. Never mind, you guys completely just blew my socks off, and my channel has been over 1,000 subs since I started editing this video. I will get that chibi model giveaway sorted as soon as I can. You still want to subscribe and maybe turn on notifications to make sure that you won't miss it. Thank you so much, and sorry about the delay. I can't 100% guarantee anything about the quality of the final model either. Like I said, I'm going to be doing it to gain experience. And as I was talking, you can already see my little doodles for what a chibi in my lineless style might look like. I drew one humanoid one and one furry one. It's giving werewolf a little bit as well. I'd also be happy to do a sitting model instead of a standing one, but that's for the future. For now, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, consider giving me a like and subscribe to see more videos. I make both VTuber rigging and also art and character and creature design content. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!